I'm going to be reading from the book of Romans chapter 4 this afternoon, and starting at verse 1. It says, "What shall we say then that Abraham, our father, as pertaining to the flesh, has found? For if Abraham were justified by works, he hath whereof to glory, but not before Yahuwah. For what says the Scripture? Abraham believed Yahuwah, and it was accounted to him for righteousness." Now I'll stop right here for a moment. Notice it says that Abraham believed Yahuwah, and that was accounted to him for righteousness. But it says, for if Abraham were justified by works, indicating that he was not justified by his actions or his works, but he was justified by believing Yahuwah. And you and I today, all mankind is justified by putting their faith in the word of Yahuwah, by believing on the Mashiach, that Yahusha is the son of Yahuwah, and that he died according to the Scriptures for our justification, raised again so that we could be justified before Yahuwah. And he shed his blood, the final sacrifice that was made for mankind. As the Scripture says, "Behold the Lamb of Yahuwah that takes away the sin of the world." And so Abraham was not justified by works, but as the Scripture says, but by faith, but by believing Yahuwah. I'm going to continue reading verse 3. It says, "For what says the Scripture? Abraham believed Yahuwah, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. Now to him that works is the reward not reckoned of favor, but of debt." In other words, if someone is justified by works, then he's justified by his actions, and that he would be due a wage for his work. But that's not how salvation is found. It's not by the works of the Torah. It's not by the works of the law that we're justified, but it's by believing Yahuwah. And I'm not saying that we don't keep the Ten Commandments. I'm not saying that we don't do what the Torah says or the Scripture says. But what I am saying is that you're not justified by the works of the Torah. You're justified by faith in the Messiah, in the Mashiach, because that's how you are justified, by putting your faith and believing the word of Yahuwah. And then it says in verse 6, "Even as David," this is talking about King David, "even as David also described the blessedness of the man unto whom Yahuwah imputes righteousness without works, saying, Blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom Yahuwah will not impute sin." You know what that means? He will not be held accountable to you. That Yahuwah would show you favor and mercy if you understand that you're justified not by your works, but by your faith in the Messiah, in the Mashiach, Yahusha. And that's how you're justified before Yahuwah. And Yahuwah will not will not impute sin unto you. In other words, he won't hold it to your account. He has justified you, made you righteous before him by his own blood, by his own sacrifice, if you will believe that. May these words bring encouragement today, and strength and enlightenment to you. Shalom.